Welcome back to Fuel Up Classic. Now, in my never-ending quest to bring you a variety of classic cars on the channel in all different weathers and environments, I've managed to get hold of a Morgan Plus 4. Chances are you will recognise this car. It is probably one of the most recognisable British sports cars of them all. It's as British as a cup of tea, a Sunday roast, or indeed complaining about the weather. Which, on that note, it is minus temperatures today. I'm still going to keep the roof down because that's what this car is all about. So the only way to drive a Morgan, no matter the weather, is to have the roof down. It's -4 today, there's no heater in here, I've got the side screens on, and that's it. But I wouldn't have it any other way because this is what Morgan ownership is like, and in so many ways, a Morgan is the quintessential British sports car. It's lightweight, skinny little tyres, a plucky little 2-litre 4-cylinder engine up front, and in the case of this one, a semi-wood construction. So we are talking about motoring from pretty much the 1940s here, and of course it was updated many times over the years, but its core, its DNA, and its everything really is from that period. And that's exactly why you buy one. You don't buy one thinking you're getting into a Rolls Royce. You buy one for that visceral experience, and it is impossible to drive a Morgan without a big smile on your face, and even if one passes you by, you just smile. It's so British and so eccentric, and of course they're bought by eccentric people as well, and I think it's the perfect car as we start the new year to take out for a pretty chilly drive, but blow the cobwebs away. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with this Plus 4 right now, because you're going to pick up that this one in particular is really quite loud. So now the car's warmed up. I haven't yet, but the road opens up a little bit here, and I just want to squeeze the throttle a little bit. Woo! You see what I mean about having a smile on your face? We're not going that fast, but you feel so connected to the driving experience. There's no power steering, there's no ABS, there's nothing to save you should it all go wrong, and that just makes it far more exciting. These skinny little tyres make you feel connected to the road, it feels light, and interestingly, the ride is much better than you might expect. It's actually really quite compliant, and the seats are comfortable. Once you're in, and it's not that graceful getting in and out, especially with the roof up, but once you're in, it's quite a cosy and comfortable place to be. And of course, you've got the little side screens if you want a little bit of ventilation, but on a day like today, we're just going to have all the elements and just make the most of this driving experience. But this is... So I don't claim to be an expert on Morgans at all, but we did feature a 4.4 on the channel before. It's a bit of a tongue twister, that one, and I really enjoyed it. But this one is a Plus 4, and it's a little bit hotter than the one we had before. It's got a little bit more go about it, and now we're warmed up, that is very obvious. The 4.4 was actually a car that I kind of fell in love with. It was a lovely summer's day. I was out driving through these country lanes, and I thought, you actually don't need anything more than this. This is true back to basics motoring. And of course, that is Morgan's DNA. These are cars that hark back to a bygone era, even though underneath they're updated and the engines they use and the gearboxes they use are quite modern in many respects. But the bodywork, the frame, everything harks back to those early days of Morgan. And if you're wondering how, because they all kind of look the same, don't they, how they named things, well, Morgan started off building three-wheelers. In fact, they still do, but they built three-wheelers with two-cylinder engines. And when they recognised there was a market for a proper four-wheeled, four-cylinder car, well, they called it the 4.4. But this one's the +4, and that means there's a little bit more oomph, a little bit more go to it. And compared to the one we featured on the channel before, which used a little 1.6 Ford engine, this is a 2-litre Rover engine in this one. About 134 brake horsepower. Might not sound like a lot, but this car doesn't weigh a lot. No driving aids whatsoever. A steering wheel straight up in front of me like this. Lovely long louvered bonnet to look out for. Those lovely sweeping wings. And now the road's opened up and the car's warmed up. So, if you're not really into your Morgans, it can be a bit of a minefield if you're looking through the classifieds or you're just curious to know more about them, because they all kind of look the same, but what you will notice is prices vary massively. But the +4 is probably the most popular model, and for good reason, because it sits really nicely in the range. It's not a big thirsty V8 or anything like that, and it doesn't command the prices of a V8, that's for sure. But the first generation came out in about 1950, ran all the way through until about 1969, if memory serves me well. I'm not a Morgan expert, by the way, but I'm just doing these dates off the top of my head. And then they killed off the +4 in 1969, but brought it back again in 1985. That's the second generation. That's what we have here. And that second generation, I think, is a really interesting pick of the bunch. They're keenly priced, they're modern power plants, and you could use one a lot of the time, and it's not going to be a pain to keep maintained. It's going to be a joy. And within that second generation, you had Rover-engined versions like this. There was even a Fiat twin-cam version at one point. And then the later generations, they started to go back to their roots again with Ford-derived units, albeit much more modern, again more powerful. And that third generation ran all the way through until 2020. But then that's not the end of the story right there. You can still go and buy a +4 from Morgan even now, although the latest version is an all-new +4, and really that is heavily redesigned from these first couple of generation cars. But £20,000 gets you behind the wheel of a 25,000 mile example like this, and I think that's tremendous value for a car that is unlike anything else. You will not be able to match the driving experience that comes with a Morgan, especially one with a 2-litre engine that's got a bit of poke to it. I think if you're in the market for something a little bit different and you just want something quirky, fun, but well supported and without the headache of, you know, old cars, well, a Morgan could be a really good package for you. And I'm just going to have another little go with squeezing the throttle because we're in third gear, there's plenty of torque. I have to slow down again now, but it's very easy to drive. They're reasonably reliable as well, and economy-wise, well, because they don't weigh a lot, they don't guzzle fuel either. The only thing that it's going to fall down on by modern standards is practicality, of course. You can get this car as a four-seater, albeit personally I think that kind of alters those lines, that look, and perhaps these early two-seater ones are a little bit more true to the original design. But you can get a four-seater if you need one, but there's no boot on a Morgan, so you rely on that little bit of space behind me on the seats for a couple of soft bags. And if you have any more luggage you need to carry, well, you're going to have to strap it to the luggage rack on the back along with the spare wheel. So that's kind of motoring that we're not used to anymore. And there are, of course, some other limitations like the side screens. The hood, when it's up, it's very difficult to get in and out. But I think if you're going into Morgan ownership, you're going to understand its limitations. But more importantly, you're going to understand the joy that this car can bring, and actually where it really, really excels is in the driving experience. So I think they could be a great buy for somebody if you just want something a little bit interesting.